welcome to Board Gamers Anonymous, a podcast about board gamers and the insane fun we have at the table together. This is Chris.
And this is Chris.
And this is episode 481, Gen Con Preview 2024. We'd like to thank all our Patreon backers for helping us bring you a brand new episode. Hello, friends. We're back, and I'm so glad that Chris has come back and joined us yet again. Hey, Chris.
Hi. Hey, how's it going?
Good. Chris, you're now a fixture here. You got to meet the people out there. They're hearing you. They're listening to you. They're cheering for you. They're going, Chris, Chris, Chris. I don't know. Might be me. Might be you. Who knows? They might like you better now. I might be replaced. So, who knows? Anthony's still away, but he'll be back soon. He's over in Seattle. So if you see Anthony, tell him to come home and get on the podcast because he's got things to do, bro. But before all of that fun stuff happens, we have a great episode for you. We're going to be talking about the preview for Gen Con 2024. One of, if not the biggest, board game conventions out there in the world. Anthony and I have been there a bunch of times. Chris, have you ever been out there at Gen Con?
I've been wanting to go forever. It is on my board game bucket list.
Yeah, it's a spectacle. It's an event in and of itself. Even if you don't go to any of the events, it's still an event. And Origins Game Fair is happening right now, which at first I was like, I'm not going to be bothered. I'm not going to be upset. And then start seeing the social media posts. I was like, oh, I wanted to go. I really wanted to be there. So hopefully we'll be back next year. But Chris, Gen Con. Gen Con's huge. Gen Con has all the vendors, pretty much. Even all the European vendors and the vendors from Japan come over. And it's just massive on top of massive. And then there's a football stadium, which is just extra because they need the space. And then on top of which makes no sense, but happens, is there's so much other stuff because there's not enough space for all the vendors out there. It spills out into all the local restaurants. So you go to Indianapolis, and beyond the couple of game stores that are on, around the area, so to speak, everything's a game store. Everything becomes a game place. So,
see, I've always wanted to go because I go to PAX Unplugged every year.
Yes,
and I'm always completely amazed how big it is.
Oh
no! But
Yeah.
I keep hearing how massive Gen Con is, and hearing that it kind of takes over the city of Indianapolis for a few days. That's crazy.
It's really funny because the hotels obviously have all the Gen Con people, and the city is very welcoming to tabletop people. And you just, again, wherever you go, there's someone playing a game, and everyone's cool with it. Or you go to your hotel, and the people are playing games in the lobby. People are walking around with bags full of games all across. The only downside is it's 100 degrees, and you're carrying 50 pounds of cardboard in each bag.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that's got to be hard.
Yeah. So I think the city's making some upgrades as far as hotels and things are concerned, but it still needs more because the hobby is growing.
I could just imagine walking around and you go by a Taco Bell and there's a person with a looking for player sign.
Yes.
Just because they want to play a game of Root inside of Taco Bell that day.
100%. 100%. So yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. If you've never been to Gen Con, you should go. I would recommend, and I was recommending this to Chris a while back, which is take your time. You have to plan for this. It's a big event. The hotels are very expensive. The travel's very expensive. All of that's very surprising. Again, it's great because gaming is everywhere, but there's limited space. So you want to plan in advance the hotel. Try to get one of the random block rooms if you can through the lottery. Go to Trade Day if you can because there's a lot of great educational events, a lot of opportunities to meet with publishers. And then you want to try to get to as many of the actual events that you can because they're very unique and different and they're everything. They're everything in tabletop gaming. So whatever you're into, they have an event that covers it. So you want to be one of the people who gets to go to the event. And again, some of them are tiny, small events and some of them are gigantic stadium-size events. And then there's a prom and there's a dance and there's shows and it's all the levels that you would ever want to be at. And again, it's 90 to 100 degrees. But again, everything's at 90 to 100 degrees these days.
So it was really cool when you were saying that there's like publishers that come from Europe over to here.
Oh yeah.
I saw when I was looking through like the Gen Con games, I noticed there was a game from a small publisher from Spain
Hmm.
that I like imported games years back. I was like, oh my god, they're finally coming to the US, and I got all
Yeah.
excited about it. But now it makes sense. Yeah, all these big publishing companies, or even the small ones, if they can get a table at Gen Con, it's worth it.
Absolutely. A lot of them, air freight out games. So that first opening day or that first opening hour, the mad rush throughout the
Oh yeah.
convention center, trying to get those games that are going to disappear immediately. Things have changed. It used to be different before Asmodee became like a major presence. So a lot of companies had like a lot of their own new releases, and now it's like you generally know what's coming in advance. So there's not a lot of surprises as there once was. Ergo, Board Game Geek's list of
Yeah.
the hotness as far as tabletop gaming is concerned at Gen Con. Although we always mention this, Chris, a lot of these kind of like ups and downs and hotness things sometimes are based upon contests that certain publishers try to do because they try to push up their ranking. So be aware. Some games that are listed as demos will not be there. Some games that are listed as buys will only be demos. So, and every once in a while, a palette of magic cards are stolen by random game designers.
Oh, that was last year, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Or Larcana could just shut down the whole convention because they're giving away promos that are going for like $2,000 on the first day.
See, I
So
wonder what's gonna be like the Mad Rush game this year.
it's true. Or
Yeah.
what palette will be stolen. We're never
Or
really
what palette
sure.
will be stolen.
With game designers who actually wear their own game names on their shirts on camera. Woo! That's the thing. All right. Well, that's our feature review, and we'll be getting into that and about all the great games so that you can keep an eye out for them and hopefully pick them up at some point, either at Gen Con. Hopefully, you're going. And if not, then later secondary market when it comes out or it comes out online, or again, all the Kickstarters and crowdfunding backing stuff that's out there. Chris, I wanted to mention this one thing to you because again, this was a little bit of a weird thing. Do you know the word meeple?
I do know where the word
Of
meeple.
Yeah, everyone knows the word meeple, right? Did you know
Yeah,
that?
we use it in our logo. I've seen it in probably half the games I have on my shelf. It's
Hmm.
everywhere.
So again, it comes from Carcassonne, comes from my people, meeple, comes from the publisher Hans im Glück, uh, who owns the German European trademark for meeple. Uh, and again, associated kind of meeple-ish characters. Historically, they've been fine with people using meeples in their games or in their rule books. They haven't been like Magic the Gathering where you can't say that you tap a card because they will send people to come get you. But recently, there's been some challenges with this because games are now coming out, and they have been historically, with the word meeple in the title. And they were not cool about this. And they were like, you can't do this. So, what we're going to need to do is enforce our trademark. Now, in particular, there was a game on crowdfunding, I think it was on GameFound, called Meeple Inc. And this is where a lot of the stuff, the controversy started because they got a cease and desist letter. You can't call your game Meeple Inc. because we own the trademark for meeples. So they changed it, Tabletop Inc., and it's going forward. But again, a lot of games have done that at this point. So some people in the board game industry, a couple of somewhat random people in different areas in publishing, Gen Con, and online, are moving the U.S. to actually trademark the word meeple here in the U.S. so that people can use it.
So I wonder now, because if this happened in Europe's courts, does that mean that like if someone has a cafe that's called like meeple and cakes, we'll say, you're like, do they have to change their name now?
I'm not really sure again about like trademark rules and laws. I mean, we know historically that one of the really interesting things about tabletop gaming is that you can't, at least in the US, I think this is globally, you can't trademark a mechanic.
Yeah.
So, deck building, everyone can use deck building. So, a lot of times you will see games that are like almost identical to other games. people get annoyed. Fans and people say things on the internet, but generally you can do that. Art is trademark. You can't use someone else's art.
Yeah.
The word meeple was again a placeholder. I mean, it started from Carcassonne, and everyone seemed to use it, and everyone be okay with it. But now, not so much. So again, if this goes through the U.S. courts and it's approved and everything like that, then it will, I guess, be available for other publishers in the U.S. But again, it's going to be challenged, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I mean, Carcassonne, they created something, so they should have some rights to it. Again, at least some acknowledgement, in other games or other publishers that, hey, we're using something that is quintessential board gaming, but it's also from a particular publisher that created it. So it's not to say that they don't have a right, because it is their thing. It's just it's hard when it's so ingrained in our industry. I wouldn't know what else to call the meeples at this point.
But then, so if you are going to trademark something as like common as meeple, then could, let's say, I'm not going to, I don't know if this is the first deck building game, but like, could Dominion trademark the term deck building game?
I guess they could, right? So like the NFL trademarked Super Bowl, and if anyone used the term Super Bowl, they would have to pay the NFL. And then later on, the NFL tried to trademark the big game, and they got
Wow.
denied, right? And they pulled back because people were upset on that. So that became still available. So you could say, "Hey, buy our potato chips for the upcoming big game," and everyone would kind of
Huh.
know what that means.
I
So
didn't
that's
know that that
something.
was the thing.
Yeah. So that was a thing in the U.S. courts. How this plays out might just be the labeling either of the game cover or the rules. But what you said, Chris, is if something becomes part of the public vernacular, the zeitgeist, then the courts tend to lean to allowing it for public use because it is part of the culture. It is commonly accepted as a generic kind of term
Yeah.
and doesn't necessarily make everyone think Carcassonne, right? Like if I have meeples in my game, no one's thinking like, "Oh, are we playing Carcassonne?" No, they think, "What are we playing here?" Because again, it's meeples.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or
s-
even if you have like how many companies have a meeple now on their
oh, sure.
logo, or how many people, like there's podcasts that have the word meeple.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's organizations like Meeples for Peoples.
Yes.
Like, they're great organizations. Are they going to get like slapped with like a cease and desist because they use the word and like the icon now?
Well, our BGA, our A is a legally distinct meeple. Let me just say that right at the start. I'm speaking from my lawyers. Yeah, yeah. It's legally distinct because it's not exactly the same shape as the A. It's fair use. We're claiming fair use, people.
It's just Meeple-ish, that's all.
It's just meeple-ish. It's got a meepleness to it. So if you haven't backed us yet on Patreon, please do so because future lawsuits might come up. Ugh, that's gonna be a problem later. Nobody tell Anthony. All right, just don't tell him. we'll just we'll just kind of brush it under the rug. No one needs to know.
We'll surprise him when he gets back with the
That's
cease and
right.
desist.
So yeah, so this paperwork came in. Yeah, we're getting shut down after 11 years, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Nonetheless. So yeah, meeple's a thing again somehow. So I don't know if you have a game that's has monsters and meeples or Meeple Inc. or some other kind of thing. It might one day be a problematic copy. I don't know. We'll see. We'll follow up. We'll see where it's going. Hopefully everyone is satisfied. Because again, I think the people from Carcassonne do deserve their rights here. But again, how far? I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
and after how long after not protecting that, you know?
yeah, I mean, they did. I think they did that under good faith, right? They didn't want to have to be those people. I mean, America is definitely a lot more litigious than anywhere else in the world,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes you don't trademark things because you want to let other people use it, and sometimes I don't know. I guess Meeple Inc. was a bridge too far or a Meeple too far for them. So I don't know. We'll see. Fun stuff will happen. But that's not all the fun stuff, Chris. As you might know, there's an academic board game tabletop game conference coming up.
Where?
I know. It's happening at Dexlight 2024 in Morristown, New Jersey. Dexlight is a tabletop convention held every year in Morristown, and it's all about playing great games, meeting publishers, designers, demoing games. It happens at the Hyatt Regency Morristown Hotel. That's 3 Speedwell Avenue in Morristown, New Jersey. And this year, we've been going for many years, been going for over a decade. This year, the academic conference, Board Game Academics, kicks off Dex Light on Thursday, July 4th, 2024. Of course, if you're listening in the future, if you can travel back in time and come, that'd be awesome. So, from 8 a.m. to about 6 p.m., there is going to be a number of different events of programming. We're going to have a keynote speaker, which we will announce next week, and a big, great panel presentation with all these different experts. Again, we'll save that for next week. But in particular, this academic conference is all about those scholars, researchers, practitioners out there who have taken tabletop gaming and done something amazing with it. And this part of their journey to get their papers published with us is an open conference that we invite the public to attend in order to learn more about, again, their scholarship, research, and use as a practitioner, and to give comments, feedback about the work that they're doing so that they can help develop their paper to the next level. And then once that happens, they'll kind of revise their work or add stuff to it, take stuff away. And then later on, we'll go down the road with peer reviewers and stuff like this. So this is their public showing, and we want as many of you as possible to come out and attend so that you can, again, enjoy all the different events and festivities from Dex Light, but especially to meet all these great young scholars out there who are first-timers a lot of times. Board Game Academics is all about bringing new voices to the table. That is not always typical for academia. Academia can be a very exclusive ivory tower. Board Game Academics is here to topple that tower and really bring in new and different, diverse voices to the table. As always, that's what the podcast is about. That's what Board Game Academics is about. Check out boardgameacademics.com/register, and you will see a complete agenda of all of the amazing writers that will be attending, along with the keynote and the panel presentation. I will be there. Will be there. Anthony will be there. Game Master Dave will be there. A whole bunch of people that you met on the podcast. And again, this would be great to play with you as well. All right, so that's all the good stuff that's going on with us. Chris, let's do it. Let's get on to our acquisition disorders. What'd you play this week? I'm sorry. What do you want to play this week? I'm so excited.
What I want is I've been dying to get a Gentle Rain.
Oh, just go outside.
I've been wanting to get this game since it first came out, like back in 2021, and I missed out on it. They've been sold out forever, and it looks like it's just kind of coming back into stores. And it is a very, very cool, super chill solo puzzle game. And they've got this really cool version that I think that's coming like on Target. Where like they come with like these little 3D flowers for you to put in between the tiles, and it just looks so nice. The game just looks so very chill. Even like the description is just like, take a deep breath, match colorful flowers, and relax. And it's like the best little tagline for it. And I just really want to get my hands on it. I'm going to start looking this weekend to see if any stores have it near me and see if I can grab a copy.
Very nice. Yeah, no, this is for me personally, I'm not the biggest solo person, but if it's going to be a solo game, I like it to be a puzzle game that I can kind of play instead of like, hey, it's just a regular game, but you're playing by yourself now. Like, nope, don't want to do that. I just want to do a puzzle. Again, right? That's what I want to do. You know,
yes.
I can play online, but yeah, makes a lot of sense.
For me, it like checks the boxes for what I want for a solo game, where it's like it's small, fits my pocket, doesn't take much time at all, doesn't take much table space. So it's like it's got about a 15-minute runtime.
Sure.
And so like you can pretty much like pick this up, play it wherever you want. You know, you don't have to set aside like 45 minutes or an hour to play it or to set anything up. It really gets to the table really quickly.
Nice. Very nice. Well, Chris, a game that I like to check out, which is also a game that I've hotly anticipated and never got to table, and now it's getting a second edition. This is Trekking the World Second Edition
Oh,
and Bucket List expansion. Race your friends to the most iconic destinations in the world. A major redesign of a best-selling world travel game with a solo mode.
oh,
So, currently on Kickstarter, and this is a game I had heard a lot about. I had played Trekking Through Time, and I liked it a lot, but this was a game that I had not played yet, and I was like, it Trekking Through Time was a really great way. Our game master Dave had taught us that game, and I had it like on my shelf forever, and I was like, I love the artwork here, it's so beautiful. And again, Trekking the World has all this beautiful artwork from all the different locations around the world, and having the opportunity to explore, right? And particular to utilize all those kind of Euro game mechanics where you're traveling throughout seemed like a lot of fun. That first version was like out there and I meant to pick it up, and then they were like the second edition's coming out and it's different. And I was like, different. Oh no, okay. So primarily what you're doing in the game is you're setting your agenda each term by picking cards from a market, and typically they are going to give you a number of different resources or money and move abilities so you can move your, I guess, legally distinct meeple around the board. As you do so, you gain souvenirs to put them in your suitcase, also very good. And that's going to allow you to score points again as you build that up. And also, you'll have the opportunity to um, score points through different encounter combos that you're able to do. But now this new version has new opportunities to kind of explore and develop all the different things that you're doing. So it has quicker and easy to learn rules, which is always great. More complexity, which is also very great. More of the travel mechanic. I think previously, and I had heard this, that you weren't really traveling as much. You were just hitting a couple of locations. This is actually traveling around the world, so it does make you feel like you're doing more of a game. More variety as far as the different actions and abilities. You're not just collecting souvenirs throughout. Faster setup, which is always good. Here's the part that really gets me: asymmetric player powers.
oh,
Because
awesome.
if I'm going to travel, I want to have an ability that I can kind of utilize. This is the part that I think was really bugging people, that there's less negative player interaction. So blocking happened a lot in the game. I don't like that. Like, I want to do the thing thematically that you can do. And when you block other people from traveling, that's not the best. So a lot more of that traveling combo mechanic, so you can actually go to a lot of different places and not just move one spot or two spots, but actually travel throughout. So yeah, no, I'm pretty excited. This is currently on Kickstarter. $40 for the game, $50 if you want the a bucket list expansion, which gives you more goals and things like that. So again, fairly inexpensive game, a lot of fun, interesting kind of pickup. Currently on Kickstarter, and it will wrap up on Tuesday, July 9th.
I actually played the first edition of this,
Oh, nice.
and yeah, I was a huge fan of it. But I did feel it was like a little simple, so really
Yes.
nice to hear that they're like fleshing out all the mechanics of it
Yeah.
and kind of just do like a well deserved second pass on this game. That's really
Yeah.
cool to hear.
Nice. All right, so that's everything we want to get to the table. Chris, let's tell them about the games that did hit the table. We'll let them know if those games are a buy and they should run out and pick those games up. If those games are a play and they should sit down and enjoy them. If those games are a dodge and they should avoid them. Or in fact, those games the dreaded burn, and maybe in a couple days we may not be able to say the word dreaded burn because it's been trademarked. But until now, it's the dreaded burn, Chris. Quick! Quick! What'd you play this week?
I played Sea Salt and Paper with
Okay.
the extra salt expansion.
Okay.
And this has become our sort of laundry game at home.
Oh,
So anytime we're going out and we have to go to the laundromat that day, we always bring our copy of Sea Salt and Paper,
nice.
and we always play in the car while we're waiting for things to go through. Um, If you guys don't know what it is a really simple card game. You have a deck and two discard piles, and on your turn, you can either take the top card from either discard pile, you could take the top two cards of the deck, keep one, discard the other one. And the game kind of revolves around uh, different combos of combining two cards together. So you could play two fish to draw an extra card. You could play two crabs to dig through the discard piles and find another card. Two boats gives you another turn. There's a whole bunch of duo combos that you can do. And it's a game where the rounds keep going until somebody calls either stop or last chance. And last chance gives your opponents one more turn to kind of get a one up on you. And if you end up succeeding, you get bonus points. So this is a really cool, very tight card game. We are able to play this on the card with like no table space. And the extra salt expansion adds some really cool cards, like a jellyfish, which kind of like hinders the next person's turn. Seahorse, which kind of helps with like certain set collection cards. It's just like overall like a really cool expansion where it's just a few cards that adds a bit more of what the game was already doing. So I would definitely say Sea Salt and Paper, definitely a buy, and the More Salt expansion definitely a buy as well because it's those extra like 15 cards it throws in really makes the game pop.
Nice. And so again, essential expansion, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially for the price, I think it's like $5 for it.
Hmm.
It's worth grabbing for that. It really gives you some cool cards. My favorite is the lobster. Uh, letting you like dig through the deck whenever you use it to like look at the top five cards, but
Sure.
there's only one copy of it in the whole deck is really really cool. So when you like pop off a lobster, everyone always goes like, "Oh, no way!" Like,
Yeah, that's real. I'm a big fan of the seahorse because getting those set collections together is so difficult. But then having the ability to have something that's going to always allow you to create at least one set, because I think what was it, the sailor is 0 to 5.
yeah,
So getting, and that's it. There's only two cards there. So you got the seahorse, you got 5 points.
yeah, because the seahorse is just the wild for any set collection. It's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's only one card like that too.
yeah, it's the only one. Yeah, so it gives you like those really cool, powerful like one of cards. It's a really nice expansion for it.
Nice. No, I 100% again, cheap and expensive, easy to teach. We played this a while back. Anthony and I played. I taught it to Anthony. I played a ton of it on Board Game Arena, which you can play. You don't think you
Yes.
need to have a premium account on that. And also on Board Game Arena, and I think I did it twice. I know I did it once. I might have done it a second time, which was I got the Four Mermaids, Chris.
That
I
happened to me
know.
once. It's so hard.
I remember after I got it the first time, I looked down like at the percentages of people who pulled it off, and it was like some crazy point 0 something percent. And I was like, and I pulled it. I don't know if it was the first time I did it. I don't know if I did it a second time. I think I might have, but the first time I did it was like the first main round, and I was like bouncing off the walls, and I was like, and I felt terrible for the person. I was like, I'm so sorry, and they're just like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh,
okay,
so for people who don't know, there are four mermaid
yes,
cards in the deck, and mermaids normally just kind of give you extra points if you
yeah,
have a lot of the same colored cards.
hmm,
But if you happen to get all four mermaids, points don't matter. Doesn't matter how many rounds. Doesn't matter if you were ahead or behind. You win the
yeah.
game. Period.
It
End of
gives you,
story.
yeah.
It's the
Tech,
like it's shoot the moon. It's the
yes,
Exodia. It's the
yes.
like yeah. It's wonderful. And when it happens to you, it's great. And when it happens against you, it is the worst feeling.
Yeah, because again, depending on the player count, like maybe you need 35 points, and
Yeah.
you could have 5, and you can pull that, and technically it gives you 100 points, which is automatic win. And it's just like, and again, it's a press your luck. It's not
Yeah.
easy. It's nearly impossible because when people see the mermaids, they're always grabbing for them.
Yeah.
So
You
to
can't
get
plan
4,
for it at all.
no.
Yeah. And I do like that because it means that no matter how far behind you are, you're
Sure.
still invested in the game because there's always that tiny, tiny little like there's a little glimmer in the sky that maybe I can just get the four mermaids.
Yeah, and it builds. Like you maybe start with a mermaid in your hand. You're like, oh, this is nice, and you're like, you get a second. You're like, okay, okay, what are you trying to say? And then maybe you pull a third one from like the deck, and you're just like, this is a reality now. Like this could happen, and then when you pull the fourth, you're just like, I didn't think that was going to happen because it's a pretty big deck.
Yeah.
So,
The best is like when you use the shark to steal a card and then it's a
oh my,
mermaid and you're like, oh, that's the third mermaid.
look what I have here. So, no, it's a brilliant addition to what otherwise, like you said, Chris, would be like you're out of the game. Just don't bother at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I like the betting mechanic too, where if you're going to stop or you're going to play all your cards. So,
Yeah.
good stuff. Chris, I got to play 3 games I played previously, but they're all 3 very good games. So I feel like I'm going to kind of speed run 3 quick reviews. First up is Fantasy Realms. I've talked about this recently. This is a game from WizKids. It's a small deck game. Chris, I think this could also be a laundry game. I don't feel it's not as good as Sea Salt and Paper, but I think it has a really interesting quality to it. Basically, you start with 7 cards in your hand, and on each turn, you take a card and discard a card. That's it. There's no other mechanics beyond that. The cards in your hand, although, have a lot of different things that are happening. So every card in your hand has a profound special ability. Typically, they are a card that will score points based upon other cards in your hand. So during the game, you're trying to get certain cards in your hand that benefit from other cards and discard the cards that are negative or can cause negative in your hand, but might cause positive in other people's hands. So I remember playing for this first time and just getting a hand of cards and going, everything looks amazing. And that typically is what happens. But you also have to get fortunate to get the cards out there in the market. Once there's 10 cards in the market, game comes to an end.
Oh,
You
okay. That's
count
nice
up.
and short.
That's it. You count up the points based upon the weird combos that you get. Like, hey, you have a king. King will score you points for like 2 points for every army. But if you have the queen, you score 20 points or something for every army. So like, I'm sorry, I think it's +8. So it's 2 and then 8. So it's like 10 points for every army you have in your hand. But at the same time, you have to worry about other cards because army cards tend to have negative abilities. So since you only have 7 cards in your hand and you can only do that kind of simple mechanic of pick one, drop one, it's just a matter of like, did you get fortunate and did you press your luck in the right particular ways? Now, there can be some challenging complications as far as arithmetic is concerned, deciding like how these things add up. I went to game night a couple of weeks ago and someone was like, "Hey, there's an app for that." And I was like about to say, "You're a liar, my friend. Like there's no way there's an app for this kind of wacky card game." Turns out there is. It's called Score, as in scoring, Score Realms. And all it is a free app that takes automatic pictures of your card as you kind of like move your phone over it, and then once it knows all 7 cards, it builds the score as you kind of take pictures of all the cards, and then at the end, it gives you a full report of how everything added up or subtracted. And we tried it multiple times, and it works, and we were
Huh.
amazed. And that free app is making me bring this back to the table because there are a lot of games where the scoring is a little wacky, and people tend not to want to play this because of the wacky scoring. This at least confirms the math that you can do in your head pretty simply. The game itself does come with a score pad. There's also a deluxe version of this, which I have not played, but itself it's very good. So I had this, I think, as a play. It moves up to a buy for me now because the app covers the big gap in the game, and they do also have an app for this game. I have not played the actual board game app for this online. It's like $5 on iOS. I might do that at some point, but again, I like the ideas of the cards in the market and picking and play those. Chris, this is definitely something you should pick up. So
That
Fantasy
sounds
Realms
really
is a
cool.
buy. Yeah, no, and the artwork is very good too. I don't want to um, not mention that as well. So WizKids, great job there.
Awesome.
And the app is not theirs. Some random people put it together. It's not theirs. Like good people out there. So, yeah,
I feel
uh,
like I had an app similar to that one for Ticket to Ride way back, where it would you would take a picture of the map, and then you would take a picture of the route cards that you had, and it would check the map, tell you the points you had there, and if you got any of the route cards, it would give you your total.
wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, and I think recently I heard the same thing for Between Two Castles, which was another
Oh,
game that was I wouldn't say it was impossible to play, but it was really difficult to score. So,
yeah.
because you have to score two castles each. Have you played that, Chris?
No, but I've heard about it. That's the one where it's like you score yours, but then you subtract from your neighbor. I think is what it is.
No, the first version was called Between Two Cities,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very, I would say, unattractive artwork. It was very basic and very plain, but basically it's a drafting game. You draft these tiles and you build, I think it's an I want to say it's a 4x4 grid, but I may be getting that wrong. And then they used the Mad King Ludwig kind of thematics, and
Okay.
they made it based on that. So now you had these small tiles that had a lot of different scoring mechanisms to them, and you had to score two castles. And I brought it to the table and we played it, and I liked it, but then I no one wanted to score their castles, and I was like, I can't do this every week. So we played it a couple times, and I was like, I like this game, but I can't play it. Recent again in my looking, I've searching for it. There is an app for it to score. That one you have to pay for. So I don't know if I want to pay an extra, I don't know, $3 to $5 for a game that I may not want to get to the table again. But yeah, free app, cheap and expensive game from WizKids is a buy.
Cool.
All right, next up, another game I got a chance to get to the table after quite a gap is Ethnos. This came out in 2017. Ethnos is it's an abstract game, period, with some fantasy artwork that is very nice. Uh, so the artist here is John Howe, and John has done a lot of great artwork out there, especially for War of the Ring, the second edition. So by the artwork alone, I was drawn to play this game. I actually own a copy of this. The game itself is very abstract. Basically, you're going to do really one of two things. Kind of reminded me of Fantasy Realms too, Chris. You're going to take a card, add it to your hand, or you're going to play what they call a band, which is basically you're creating sets. So a set is either one type of mythical creature or all of one particular color. And those colors relate to six different sections of the board. And basically, when you play a band out, again, if it's a color, you're going to place one of your tokens, your markers in that particular area because you're trying to do area control. Whoever has the most tokens in that particular area at the end of the round scores the points. Depending on how number of people playing the game, there could be 2 or 3 rounds or ages, as they're called. But as you're placing tokens, you need to have higher bands, number of cards of a set to be able to place an additional token. So if I have 2 tokens out in a certain area, I now need to play a band of 3 to be able to play to that area. So again, color matches color, or you could decide to play based upon the color of that particular creature, but you have a whole set of those creatures. What's really cool about the game is there's a lot of different creatures that you kind of select at the start of the game, and each of the creatures allows you to kind of play differently. So you're only going to pick 6 out of the 12 tribes, and I don't want to go into this too much detail, but for example, Minotaurs, you're going to have an opportunity to get these scoring tokens that are going to break ties. Wizards will allow you to draw additional cards. Elves will allow you to keep cards in your hand. I'm sorry. Trolls allow you to get the token when you do section scoring. Minotaurs allow you to play a second set, which is very helpful. So there's a lot of different kind of mechanics, and they kind of pair together. So you could play centaurs out first, which allows you then to play elves, which then allows you to hold cards in your hand. If you just play a single band, or even if you play two, you're going to have to discard the other cards to the market. You can only hold 10 cards in your hand. So at some point, you're going to have to play cards out there, and that's pretty much it. So the artwork alone kind of elevates the game to an extra special level that typically I would just be like, hey, it's pasted on artwork. And it is, but it's great to paste it on artwork. The board itself is very kind of bland and generic, but it kind of comes together as a game because you do have the different mythological creatures which you can put together, which does allow you to have different kind of play styles throughout. So Ethnos for me still gets a play. I really enjoy it, and I recommend it because I think this is a game that really anyone could play at the table.
Hearing you explain this, well, the map reminds me of Concordia, the way
Yes.
just it looks. Um, but like the way you're talking about having to play like multiple sets and area
Yeah.
control reminds me of was it Dawn of Ulos
Okay.
that Thunderworks came out with, where it's like you have different like you have different tribes that you can like play to gain
Sure.
bigger area, and each tribe has its own ability. Like it sounds like that's where they got a lot of their ideas
Sure.
from, was from Ethnos, because it looks really similar to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just 6 sections on the board. You have tokens. You gotta make set collections. The set collections have the special ability written on the card. It takes almost no setup time. It takes almost no teach time. I think and would love for them to come out with a new edition because again, I think the board is needed, but it could be a quarter of the size and still work.
Yeah.
And I think it would be better as a small box game because again, it's a very large deck of cards and a small board and a couple of tokens, and I think they could squeeze that into something a little more manageable. But
They could bring
otherwise,
the
it
they bring the map art up to match up with the card art.
yes, which was weird when you play the game. You're like, oh, this art on the cards is fantastic, and the board looks like something that they borrowed from someone, and I don't understand. Again, and the gameplay, like I said, is very like not connected to anything. Like those, it didn't need to be fantasy creatures. I
Mhm.
maybe they spent all the money on the artwork, which again, God bless them because they made the right choice there. But
Yeah,
beyond
look
that,
at the wing folk, and they look really cool.
they do. All right, well, one final game that I have played and championed quite some time. This is Kingsburg, which came out in 2007. But recently, I was able to get the new version, the second edition to the table, that came out in 2017, 10 years later. I own both versions of this. I brought this actually out to the table. I was playing at a game night. I wasn't sure about the crowd that I was playing with, so I wanted to bring something to the table that everyone could play. And something that we talked about recently with our question of the week, Chris, which was I know you had answered as well, which was what game can you play at the table without even having to look at the rules? Kingsburg is one of those games for me. It's very easy, straightforward. It's a beautiful game. Basically, you are rolling dice, and the outcome of those dice, as far as the pips are concerned, is your ability to influence certain advisors on the board. So the board itself, with this new edition, has new artwork, which I do not like. I like the old artwork better. But again, I've talked about this many years ago. I love the game so much I picked up the second edition. Now, the good reason for the second edition is the expansion for the first edition has been out of print forever. So if you did want to pick up, and you should have the expansion, it was very hard to find and very expensive. So the second edition comes with everything, including the expansion. Again, going back to the rules, you roll the dice, you got numbers on the dice. You can split those 3 dice up amongst the 3 advisors if they are available, or you can kind of put them together based upon how much you want to influence a particular advisor. So it goes from the jester, who's like, he needs a 1 die because he's not very powerful, all the way up to the queen and king, which need a 17 and 18 total in order to influence them.
Whew.
So that's pretty much it. When you influence them, you get resources. Sometimes it's military because at the end of the year, there you get attacked by some mythological force, and you're going to need military. you do damage if you don't have enough military. If you have too much military, you get a bonus. But primarily, what you're doing is you're getting resources to be able to trade in the wood, the stone, and gold to be able to build different buildings on your player board. The player board has a number of different variety of buildings you can build, and as you build, you have to build higher and higher, more powerful buildings, which costs, of course, more money and resources. Not a problem, because as the game goes on, these buildings that you built will give you special abilities, including additional resources throughout the game. Awesome. Now, that would be enough as far as the base game is concerned. With the expansion that comes in the new edition, or again, if you have the original edition with Kingsburg to Forge a Realm, which was the name of the expansion, you also get a building board that has two additional rows of buildings, which is great because more variety is better. You also get alternate row buildings. You get these strips, and you're able to draft them or give them out depending on what you want to do. And that allows your building sheet to be different than the other players at the table. In addition to that, there are special ability player cards. So, what I did with the game is I gave everyone three based on the rules, and they picked one which gave them an asymmetrical power in the game. That's pretty fun. There are event cards, global event cards. These are pretty fun. I remember talking about this back in the day. There are two cards in the game that says the king is sick. If two of those cards come out, the game ends immediately. I remember explaining those rules. I'm like, this has a thing in the game that's never going to happen because it's a big deck, and then it happened like the second round. But usually it gives you a resource or it does something bad. Again, global effect kind of cards. And then finally, there is a way, instead of rolling a dice to get extra military, you actually have player tokens. And each of these player tokens gives you military at the end of the game. And whatever player token you're left over with gives you additional points in the game. So it's a lot of great module expansions, in addition to a new one, which allows you to be able to switch up some of the advisor's special abilities. So we got to play with all the expansions. It was not difficult at all. All new players at the table, with the exception of me. We really enjoyed it. Kingsburg second edition, despite not having better artwork than the first edition, does have the expansion in it and is still an awesome game. And I still do recommend it as a buy. So Kingsburg's second edition, 2017. It's got about 2.45 weight on Board Game Geek. It's a good gateway Euro game, so I definitely recommend checking it out.
So, how many people did you play with?
We played with 4. I think you could play with 5.
Okay, and how long did it take you?
I would say it was probably about with 3 new players at the table. I think it was under an hour and a half.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Being like you added all the expansions and everything, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, the expansions flow pretty well. I mean, at the beginning of the game, you have to make some decisions as far as like what advisor, what kind of additional row do you want to add, and then the global events come out as they do. But again,
Mhm.
the board itself has a little marker that just mark each different season you go through. So most of the rules are on the board, Chris. This is really anyone could play this. I would even say a non-gamer could play this. Again, there is certainly some complexity to as far as like if I build this building, it will help me with resources that allows me to build this building, or this will allow me to modify my dice rolls. So if you ever play with dice as meeples, I didn't say the word meeple, you didn't hear that, uh, then you know when you roll badly, it's a bad time. Kingsburg was the first game that really did a lot to kind of modify the dice rolls so you weren't in the worst position possible. And the game offers some catch-up mechanics. So if you have not played this, you should. If you've played this or own this, try Alien Frontiers, which uses a lot of the mechanics with Kingsburg.
Oh, cool.
All right, so that's everything at our table this week. Chris, let's do it. Let's get on to our Gen Con preview 2024. This is the hotness from Board Game Geek. There will be new games added. There will be games that will sadly not attend. But Chris and I have picked out our 10 most anticipated games from Gen Con 2024. Chris, why don't you start us off? What are you looking forward to seeing?
All right. So the first game I've got here, well, it's an expansion for a game.
That's
It
fine. We'll
is
take it.
it,
We'll accept it.
it is Space Base Genesis.
Oh,
It's the new expansion for Space Base. I'm a huge fan of the game. Um, I think it's one of the best like little like dice checking engine builders.
mm-hmm.
I actually recently played Machikoro and it made me want to go back to Space Base again. So when I saw this expansion, I was like, great, just the reason for me to get this back onto the table.
I have I play Machikaro, and I know it had like a lot of expansions. At
Yeah.
some point, I gave up on it. I owned a copy of it, and then Space Base came out, and I own that, Chris. I have not played that yet.
Oh, it's worth it. I would say go into it because my biggest problem with Machikoro was like I feel like the beginning just feels so slow.
Yes.
If you play Space Base, play with the I think it's called like the lightning fast rule setup.
Okay.
Pretty much it's the regular setup. You just get you start off with two cards that you already add to your tableau,
Nice.
and it kind of just gets the game going a little bit faster. Um, it is great. You are always engaged in the game because whenever whether it's your turn or not, you're always looking for the resources that other people are rolling that they're giving you. You're always looking for the new cards that are coming up in the shop for you to buy. I just feel like after playing Space Base, I'll never go back to Machikoro again. It's just better in every way, in my opinion.
Wow. That's high praise. All right, Chris. So I got one here for you. And again, this was something I think I had seen on Kickstarter, and I was amazed that it came out. This is River Valley Glassworks. So this is all about cute woodland creatures and their entrepreneur. So they're out there with their shops. And again, what kind of really drew me to this is they have basically, I don't know if it's literally, but they have basically what looks like sea glass in the game.
Oh,
And
this looks so cool.
doesn't it? I mean, the
Oh
artwork
my
looks great and the pieces look excellent, and you put the river glass on your board and they're all different colors and textures and shapes. And I was very close to backing this on Kickstarter. I'm like, am I going to back a game that's basically a bunch of different like glass pieces? And I'm like, almost certainly.
yes, I am.
And it had a deluxe version, so it had all the fancy stuff out there as well. So uh, I did not get a chance to back this, but again, this is coming out Gen Con, so hotly anticipated. Really interested in checking this out and seeing it in person, because I think again a lot of times what we see on crowdfunding is very pretty games, but games that don't are maybe sometimes too simple.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to play this.
I feel like this game's gonna have the like how Athul had the tactile appeal to it.
Yes.
I feel like that's what this is gonna have. Like playing with those little glass beads while you're playing the game is gonna have
Yes.
that nice little like satisfying like clink 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 to it.
That's the thing. Sometimes when they put a lot of money into the production, it when you play the game, you realize like, hey, you didn't need to spend an extra $10 on the first player marker. It's never moving,
Yeah.
or even on the legally distinct meeples. So again, if you're moving, you're manipulating a lot of those kind of pieces. It deserves to be deluxeified, but you
yeah.
don't know that until you play the game. All right, Chris, what do you got up for us next?
Next I've got Super Boss Monster.
Okay.
So they're redoing a game called Boss Monster. It's the theme is amazing. It is you are the bad guy in essentially a Super Nintendo video game,
Mm-hmm.
and you are making a dungeon trying to lure in and kill as many heroes as possible, getting the most loot out of them, and just trying to get the most points. Sadly, Boss Monster was not an outstanding game. It was something that I feel like had so much potential and just kind of fell flat it was just a very simple game. The creators have gone back. They have done a few games since then, and I feel like their game design chops have kind of gotten better over the years. And so they're going back to their original game, Boss Monster, to make it a more modern, more I guess complete game, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it. And I think the name of Super Boss Monster is a very Super Nintendo style game for them
Yes.
to have called it.
Yeah, Anthony and I were really into this when it first came out. We backed it on Kickstarter, and we backed the expansion, and then they also had, I think with the expansion, they also had the board game app. You could
Yeah.
actually play this online. And it just, I don't know, it just dropped off for us.
Yeah, because you want so much from this game, and then it doesn't deliver. Like the theme is so good, and the
Yes,
idea of like what they want you to do in the game, like making this dungeon and like essentially trying to like make a better trap than your enemies to make people want to come to your dungeon, is so you can take their loot and you can take their fame.
sure.
And it doesn't really deliver and all that. You just feel like you're just playing these like very mediocre tableaus, and it just doesn't give you the same sense as like the theme is
Mm,
promising.
100%. Yeah, it was, like you said, conceptually it was right, but just when you play it, it's just like, it is somewhat lackluster. And again, I own a lot of it, and I was just always waiting for it. But yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. But I mean, they've done Overboss and things like that recently, and they've gotten
Sure.
better with it, and
Yeah.
they've stuck by the theme of this like Super Nintendo, Nintendo like era games to use for
Hmm.
like all these. And I think them going back and touching this up, I think they're gonna do a good job with it.
Yes, I have no doubt. I'm really excited about that. I really hope that it comes back strong so I can get to the table.
Hmm.
All right, well, a game that I had seen at PAX Unplugged, at least in the kind of base version of this, Luthier, Chris. You might have stumbled across this as well. So you're dealing in the era of, or the height of, classical music in Western Europe, and it's all about the instruments that are being played by skilled craftspeople. You're dealing with patrons and performers, and then you of course have all your composers: Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, all those kind of famous people. It's Euro game. It's just a straight up wonderful Euro game with some incredible artwork by Vincent Dutrait, and it's hidden bidding and worker placement, and it's managing resources, craft the different musical instruments in the workshop while working on, uh, I guess, managing the different patrons so that they can provide the resources and actions for your tableau. Again, it looks beautiful, some great artwork, and this is certainly one of the games I'm definitely picking up once it comes out. Luthier.
Yeah, this seems really cool, especially after this is from Paverson, so they just
Yeah.
finished making Distilled.
Yes.
So yeah, I think if they can kind of keep that momentum going, I think they're going to be a really cool publisher to see.
It's a beautiful little game. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, no, the box and the cover look really nice as well.
Yes.
Makes me think of Lacrimosa.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. All right, Chris. What do you have next?
So next up, I have Little Alchemists.
Ooh.
So this is the like family weight version of just Alchemists. Um, it is a really cool deduction game. That when I first played it, uh, frustrated me to no end. I felt like I couldn't get my head wrapped around what I needed to do until the game was too late.
Hmm.
But I really wanted to go back to it, but I was always just kind of like irked about like how I felt like there was just one too many things going on. I'm really excited to see what Little Alchemists do, to see if it's maybe maybe it needed to be toned down a little bit more
Oh
for me
yeah.
to be able to like play catch up, and seeing if this is going to be working like a better version for me.
Did you play the original?
I did, yeah. It was great. I really liked a lot of the mechanics. I liked being able to test the potions out, like on the villagers, or being able to sell them, and like hopes that like it works properly. And then the idea of having to publish them, uh, I really enjoyed all of it. I was really bad at the deduction, and it's just I felt like I made a mistake early on that I couldn't figure out what it was, and I
Yes.
pretty much just ruined my deduction for the rest of the game.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it was like while I really enjoyed the like mechanics of it, I felt like in the end I was just like I feel like I did nothing at all. So I'm really hoping like Little Alchemist is just a little bit simpler, and that I'm able to
Yes.
kind of like keep up with the game as it's going on.
Wow. Anthony and I plays way back in the day. He liked it. I did not. And I just thought it was obtuse. It was clunky. The scoring, the app that you had to run through.
Hmm.
And I saw this came out, and I think Anthony was also excited about this. I'm still not excited about. I want to be excited about it because I think it has a lot of potential to it. So if they could stream this down to something that's at least a little more mentally manageable, I would appreciate it. Maybe it's just
Yeah,
me. I don't know. First version
yeah.
didn't do it for me.
Especially like because now you have games like Search for Planet X, like that have like kind of worked on deduction a bit more, and
Yeah.
having an app integrate with it to make sure it's all running smoothly. Like I feel like maybe this is going to be. I would like for this to be almost a like Alchemist Second Edition, as well as it being the family version. Like
Hmm.
maybe this is what kind of gets me coming back to it.
Nice. All right, Chris, I got a game I want you to check out. It's called Sea Dragons. You are protecting island. You're protecting the island from pirates and getting control of the sea. So it's an area control game. You have contracts in it, again, it's a modular board, grid movement. What's wonderful about this game? Think Loch Ness monster kind of situation. Is that you are a family of sea dragons that are trying to do good to protect the lands and the seas, the forbidden seas out here. So each turn, one of the two pattern cards from your hand are played out there, and that allows you to put another part of your sea dragon body. And basically, you want to connect your body as long and as much as possible to control as much area as possible, all the while hitting certain objectives like sinking ships or collecting treasure throughout the sea. So it's a beautiful, colorful game at the table, and it offers a lot of, I guess, family gameplay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture here. It is it is so colorful. Woo.
Yeah, it's a I mean, we've seen this idea where you have the dragon's head or the sea serpent's head, and then you have different parts of its body that pops up through the ocean.
Mhm.
And we've seen this in a lot of different ways. I'm amazed that no one's done it before now, but again, it's here and it looks amazing at the
Yeah,
table.
it
So
really pops. That's some really nice table presence.
yeah, I'm really
And
excited.
I'm a huge fan. Like if the art that they have in the cover matches within the game, I'm a huge fan because this is the same person that did the art for Sale.
Yes,
Yeah, so if that's the art that they're going to use for the game, amazing. I'm
yeah,
really looking forward to this
the
then.
the artful, the artwork, and the legally distinct meeple sea dragons in here. They're fantastic. So yeah, that's Sea Dragons. Check that out. What
All
do you
right.
got, Chris?
So the next one I've got is another expansion. This is for a game called Bonsai, and
Hmm.
the expansion called, and I love this name, Wabi Sabi.
There you go. Wabi
So
sabi.
so this is a game that I feel like kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people. Where
Hmm.
you're pretty much trying to grow and cultivate your bonsai.
Yes.
So thematically, I really, really dig it. I think it's just like a really nice, calm, relaxing theme.
Hmm.
And it kind of worked really well. We are like taking cards every turn. Some of them are like people who let you build faster. Some of them are giving you more tiles to put onto your bonsai tree, and you're trying to like meet specific goals. So what Wabi Sabi is adding is an extra player, more goals, ways to double up on goal points. So if you wanted to kind of like double down on a specific one, you're able to do that. And it's adding more cards for you to draft from. So I feel like this is the kind of expansion that I really look forward to, where it's just kind of
Mm,
like more of the same. And I already like the game, and if this is going to be adding more, kind of how like extra salt did, then
yes.
that's exactly what I'm looking for a game like Bonsai. I feel like it needs that little extra push where like they've played the game, people played the game, they've gotten to see what they like about it, and now they can be like, cool, we know what you guys want. Here's a little extra.
Like it. Like it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's this two-dimensional bonsai tree
Yeah.
that you're kind of growing, and the artwork on the actual cards is really fantastic as well. But you're right. It certainly has that really cool, chill kind of vibe to it. I think Anthony talked about this a while back, and you can play multiplayer, which you don't need to, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love it.
So I think it's really cool is every time we've played it, it's like your bonsai tree really does end up being so different.
Nice,
Like the goals really like they make you have to like build your trees in different ways and like how you start like saying, you know what, I'm gonna give up on this branch, I'm gonna grow it out this direction, I'm gonna put a few more fruits, a few more flowers. It just looks so vastly different every time you play.
great. Well, I got a, I guess, game somewhat in that realm. This is Undergrove. This is from Elizabeth Hardgrave and Mark Wooton, with artwork from the amazing Beth Sobel. And this is coming out from AEG. This is a game I believe I saw it last year at Gen Con. I saw a demo of this. And this is all about the amazing, mysterious, wondrous network of fungi that runs underneath basically all plant life. And especially in this game, underneath your great tree that you are utilizing in order to spread out your seedlings. And you're able to spread out your seedlings throughout a whole bunch of different areas in the forest, utilizing a bunch of different mechanics that basically comes down to area majority and influence in certain areas based upon the particular fungi that are out there to support you. This wonderful trading network where one tree is able to trade resources through the network to other seedlings or other trees. And it's that networking connection that happens. This is, again, it's a unique, beautiful theme that we typically don't think about. It's one of the wonderful things about tabletop gaming is it allows us to pay attention to something in the world that typically we don't pay attention to and allows us to play a role in that. So I remember seeing this. It looks a little more complex. This is definitely not a gateway of the game. It is really about, converting cubes throughout, dealing with tile placement, area control, and of course engine building, because again, it's a Euro on top of everything else. So Undergrove could be Elizabeth Hardgrave's next big hit.
I hope so. I backed this when it was on Kickstarter,
Oh,
and
nice.
I saw the demo at PAX last year, and
Sure.
I'm so excited to play this.
Absolutely. All right, Chris, what do you have next?
So the next one I have is a game I did not expect to see at all, and it is called Knitting Circle, a Calico game. And
Of
so
course it is. Of course.
yes. So, in true Calico fashion, there's not a calico on the cover, but an orange cat. So this is going to be a knitting game.
Hmm.
I'm curious to see how much this game takes from the original Calico game because it's still
Hmm.
going to be about tile placement. It's still going to be a puzzling game. And I'm hoping that this game is going to be just as good as Calico. Last time I got a knitting game was Arch Ravels,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was really excited for it, and it kind of let me down a little bit.
Aw.
So I'm hoping that Knitting Circle is going to be that like little knitting game that I want in my collection.
I could see that. They really go hardcore on that. And I've enjoyed their other games. So
Yeah,
I can
I
imagine this works really. Chris, have you played Calico on Steam? Have you played the app?
I haven't, but I've seen that you have all the little cats that wander around on your blanket, and it's adorable.
It's very adorable, and then there is a story mode you can play out. And
Oh, that's so
it's a
weird.
it's about cat worshipping and a world war. So
Oh, okay.
you got it's really, if you love Calico, you should get it. I think
Okay.
it's definitely worth playing. And again, the I won't give away any more of the story there, but it's yeah, it's Calico. So yeah. All right. Chris, I got an expansion for you. This
Awesome.
is Gaia Project, which you already know. The
Hmm.
Lost Fleet. So ships of the Lost Fleet allow access to new technology. Here's the thing about Gaia Project. It has always been, even though it was the new hot thing, still not as hot as Terra Mystica and all of its other versions that have since come out. It was better mechanically, but thematically, it wasn't just popping. It just wasn't. but it offered some new mechanical opportunities to kind of really explore different mechanics. Now, with the expansion here, it allows you to bring new things in. So you have 4 new factions. You also have new module planet pieces that come into play, 6 new advanced technologies, 4 new round boosters, 3 new scoring, 3 new round scoring, and then the most important thing, uh, faction balancing. So there's going
Oh,
to be some different starting resources, income, action cards, and things like that. That certainly that certainly needed to happen. So I have not played Gaia Project in many of a year. I think the last time I played it was a Gen Con ago. So yeah, Gaia Project: The Lost Fleet. Chris, have you ever played Gaia Project?
no, but it's been the only Terra Mystica version that I've wanted to play.
Mm,
Because for me, just space theme in general just kind of gets me a little bit more.
sure.
But I always saw that like Terra Mystica got expansions, but Gaia Project never did. I always wondered why, and I'm just really happy to see that's actually getting support. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy that they just didn't leave it at that because again, they've been rolling off new and unique versions of Terra Mystica, which all have been wonderful. And I was like, well, sorry, Gaia Project. The forgotten child of the family. Nope. No, no, they did not forget. They came back and they brought some things in here. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, rebalancing is also really cool to see. That's really cool. They went back to touch them up.
I love that because sometimes, you do, after multiple people play it for multiple years, you need to come in and make some changes. So
Yeah.
thank you. All right, Chris, what do you have next?
All right. So I got another expansion because it looks like I just want to keep adding to the games I already have. So it is Beacon Patrol Ships and Shores. So Beacon Patrol is a co-op tile laying game where you and your buddies are trying to map out a bunch of islands that are around you, and you do this by playing a tile, drawing new tiles, moving your ship around, and uh, it's a really fun, very stressful tile laying game. What Ship and Shores is going to be adding is asymmetrical powers for your ships. So instead of everybody just having your regular little steamboat, you can get submarines, you can get a hydroplane, you can get a barge, and every ship has its own unique power to kind of make this tile laying puzzle work a little bit different. I heard that some ships that when you add them into the game will actually add more tiles to the stack that you're using, and they'll have their own separate goals as well. So I'm really interested to see how this is going to affect Beacon Patrol because it has definitely been one of my go-to co-op games recently.
Nice. Yeah, I think you're right on board with that too. I think that's and I don't think it gets enough play,
Yeah,
honestly. I haven't seen enough. I haven't heard people talk about it enough, and I'm glad that it's getting hopefully the final attention it deserves at Gen Con.
yeah. I feel like the art style of it is kind of what drew me to it first. It's got this really cute little like pencil cartoony art style,
Hmm.
and then when you're playing the game, it's almost like it's like a weird Carcassonne co-op puzzle where you're trying to just like explore as much as you can,
Yes.
and depending like where your ship is, where you can place your tiles, and you're trying to like the more lighthouses you discover, the more piers that you explore, the more islands you complete, and that you can like sail around. You just keep kind of adding more and more points,
Hmm.
and then your options get just more and more limited. But once you've done it a few times, you kind of just like, okay, well now what? So I think it's adding like 8 new ships. It's adding a pretty decent amount. So I'm really curious to see how this will change it.
Very nice. Yeah, same here. Chris, have you played Barcelona?
I haven't. I've been
Oh
to
no.
Barcelona.
Have you? I dropped in the chat here for you. Check it out. Have you? So we got a new expansion.
Let me see this.
Yeah, I think this is if we've talked about Barcelona a lot, Chris, because it was one of our favorite games of the year, and it won an award for us here at BGA. And they have an expansion. I don't know. Have you been to this place that the expansion is talking about?
Let me see. Wow, the cover is beautiful.
I know. And this is the thing too. Board and Dice a couple years ago, Chris, they were like, "Hey, our games are kind of great, but people are not running after them like they are everyone else." And
Mhm.
they're like, "What's the problem?" and we're like, yeah, everything you produce is like shades of beige and green, and like, and they all artistically look alike. And Boards and Dice were known for their tea games, which wasn't a bad thing, but was also like the games were so forgettable or blend into each other. I honestly couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you the names of most of them.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have been to the street that they're talking about in this expansion,
okay.
and it's really nice being there. You get to see a bunch of street performers. You have a bunch of like small little coffee carts everywhere.
Hmm.
That's like the main road in Barcelona to see.
Okay. What is the read that for me, Chris?
Uh, Paisaje de Gracia. Oh God, I'm gonna butcher it. My family's gonna murder me for this. This is-
Better you than me, Chris. You're literally from there, so I don't.
oh no.
This is the expansion to Barcelona. As Chris was mentioned, there's a wonderful, street area where there's a number of different. There's a promenade where there's a number of different restaurants, shops, ballrooms, theaters, parks. A lot of wonderful places for the whole community to enjoy. Barcelona, as far as the city plan is concerned, is about to integrate all the different populations of people of all different classes and to provide them with a livable, walkable city. So, in this expansion, many of your rich citizens decide to build their houses there, hiring the most famous modern architects who create some of the most iconic landmarks in the city. So basically, this promenade here allows you to take people up there to score additional points based upon the buildings that you built there. So Barcelona is this wonderful scoring track mechanism where you always have an opportunity to score a lot of different areas. And this adds to the beauty and the wonderment of the city. So I am incredibly excited about this. But of
No, this
course,
is
not pronouncing the name. And if Chris can't do it, then I feel like I feel better
then
about the
nobody
whole thing.
can.
That's it.
No, this game looks great.
It
I,
really
I
is.
I definitely turned from going from tans and beiges to a really nice, colorful board.
Yes, and it's fairly inexpensive too, Chris. I think it's one of it's Board and Dice is always known, I guess, since they came out for like reasonably priced games,
Hmm.
and the production on this is just top notch. The artwork here
Yeah.
and the graphic design's great.
Ooh, and it's crunchy.
Oh
It's
yeah,
3.35.
yeah, it was one of our award winners. So if you haven't played it, you should.
Oh yeah,
And
no,
again,
I'm putting this on my want list.
and Chris, I will say the crunch to the game is not because it's difficult to play; it's because you can put together some really awesome combos.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh,
Yes.
that's really cool to see.
All right, Chris, what do you got for us?
Right. So next is a game I actually spoke about. I think a while ago when I was on the podcast. It is Dead Cells, the roguelite board game.
Ooh,
So I am a massive fan of Dead Cells, the video game.
nice.
And I backed this on Kickstarter a while back, and I am really looking forward for people to get their hands on it so I can
Mm-hmm.
get more reviews about this. I've seen so many people get their copies of Slay the Spire,
Uh-huh.
and I've been very, very jealous that those people have gotten their video game board game, and I want my video game board game already. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's a 4-player co-op dungeon crawler, where the big appeal for Dead Cells is that you die, you come back, you get new skills, you get new weapons, but it has always been about how fast paced Dead Cells is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious to see how they can kind of keep that fast paced gameplay in the video game and how it translates into the board game. I'm really, really looking forward to this game.
Yes, we talked about this a while back, and especially the roguelike kind of system. And th- I was skeptical, Chris. I was skeptical of Slay the Spire. I love the game, the video game. And Anthony has it and played it, and he was like, "It's amazing."
Mhm.
And we talked about this when it was on crowdfunding. I'm more excited now that they can pull this off.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. So Slay the Spire seems really like when you start a new run, it seems like everything's very fresh. You start your new deck over and everything. What I'm really liking about Dead Cells is that they actually give you a board where you sleeve in the new runes and abilities that you get,
Hmm.
and it'll keep adding to like your weapon and your loot deck that you keep pulling from. I think this is going to be a really cool one. I'm really really looking forward to this a lot.
Same. I think that I will say in a I mean, maybe this is going to be a whole new genre of tabletop gaming. Obviously, if this lands it, then I think we'll see a lot more, and maybe one day we'll have a versus because
Yeah,
I think this could stand up to Slay Spire.
I hope so. Because I think Dead Cells has been one of my favorite games for the last couple of years.
Mm.
I can't even imagine how many hours I've sunk into it already.
Is it on Steam?
It's on Steam. I've got it on
Okay.
PS5. I got it on
Oh, okay.
Switch. I think I've downloaded it on my phone once before.
Well, Steam does the disturbing thing of telling you how many hours you've played Steam,
Yeah.
and you never want to see that. You're always like, "Oh no." It's like,
You glance at it once, you go, "Oh God, what have I done?"
yeah, like I never want to see this thing again. I don't want to see anything that mentions how many hours I played Team Fortress 2, for example, because no one should know those stats. Those stats should just disappear with time. So, yeah, that's the thing. All right. Chris, I don't know if you played this game. Well, let me just say it this way. I Have you played Foundations of Rome?
I haven't, but I heard so much about it, especially when it like because of its big production value.
Yes. And I remember talking to people at Arcane Wonders, and the shipping alone for that game I think, was somewhat of the bane of their existence. Like, they paid so much out to ship that game. It was so heavy, and again, it's a wonderful, I guess, reimplementation of I'm trying to think what say something like the old the old paper and pen kind of grid games where you picked certain polyominoes and you try to, like, fill in the different sections here. This is one of those situations where it was the utmost, the best production possible, and it was from the Dice Tower Central line by the amazing designer Emerson Matsuchi.
Huge
And
fan of him.
oh, same, huge. And the production here alone was amazing, but the gameplay was innovative as well because it wasn't just like throwing polyominoes on the board. Now, I guess in part because the game was so huge, both physically and I guess in the industry too, very big. They re-implemented it into Foundations of Metropolis. So we've
Oh,
taken it out of Rome, and we've gone modern here. So you're going to be competing over 3 rounds to become the greatest architect of the city again, by purchasing deeds to empty lots, constructing new buildings for them. Okay, more complex buildings, more lots required, uh, greater prestige. Again, it's all about being a great architect. When I was a kid, and I was even in high school, big architecture program that I was in, even was in college for architecture. So this hits me right in the core. So it's all city building. If you're not into the Roman kind of version, now you got a city version. So yeah, Foundations of Metropolis. If
so
it's
is this going to
anything,
have the massive production?
uh, there's not a lot of pictures out there yet about this. So we're waiting to see at this point.
Okay, because if
So
that'd be really cool to see like skyscrapers,
that's what I'm
huge bridges
thinking.
spanning across. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I really sincerely hope that people are at Gen Con enjoying this as much as possible because that's where I would be. Now, from the rule book alone, it 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 looks to have more of the kind of shrunk down production here. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have another version, Chris.
Okay.
It looks like cardboard pieces, Chris. It doesn't look like the buildings.
Okay. So I
So
guess this is going to be they're more like retail friendly because
yeah,
you can't really pop Foundations of Rome in a Target and be like, yeah, there we go,
no.
everybody.
Yeah, the rule book again, I'm always hoping that there's a deluxe version hanging out there somewhere with nice fancy kind of like you said, Chris, fancy buildings out there, but this looks like a retail friendly, shipping friendly version of a thing.
Okay.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
So the next one I've got is Kelp. Shark versus Octopus.
Oh yeah, I had that on my
Yeah,
list too.
yeah. This is cool. We can do a double on this one. All right, so I'm really excited for this. I am a huge fan of two-player dueling games,
Uh huh.
and I am a huge fan of sharks and octopuses.
Of course. Who's not?
uh, and I really like how it is part deck building, part dice bag building. I think it's a really cool mix of mechanics for something like this. The art is amazing. I think this is really cool production, and I feel like there's for a game that I didn't really hear of for a while. I am really excited about this. This looks really cool.
Mm. Yeah, this was something that I was again like I talked about this on an acquisition disorder when it was I think it was on one of the crowdfunding sites and then a deluxe version. It was like asymmetric two-player game, but it was so smart as far as like not just asymmetric as like you have a special power, I have a special power, but it also had different ways in which you played the game.
Yeah.
And again, the shark being vicious and attacking, and the octopi being very smart to kind of dodge and things like that.
hmm
So
it's the same reason why I'm a huge fan of Star Wars Rebellion, because it
yes,
ends up just being a game of hide and seek in a board game, and I feel like that's what this is also. Like the shark is trying to hunt down the octopus. The octopus is playing hide and seek, trying to get like their goal done in the meantime.
that's funny. It's true. Next up, Chris, I got a game here. I want you to take a look at it, or I'll drop it in the chat here. Citizens of the Spark. I think the artwork alone is kind of next level. I'm really kind of really liking it a lot. This is a game from Philip Duberry. I don't remember the last time when we talked about one of his games, but he was one of our favorite designers for quite some time. Revolution is one of my favorite games of all time. Still own it. Still on my top 100. It's one of the games Anthony and I met over for the very first time.
Huh.
He did Spirits of the Rice Paddy. He did Skyway Robbery, which was I think it was a Kickstarter back in the day. I backed that as well. So I'm really happy to have him back. Chris, tell me about this artwork.
uh Beautiful, colorful.
Right?
It's like if it's as if Zuvadis had an acid trip.
Yes, 100%. So you have these animal people that are out here on the board, and again, the whole game is about playing with 7 to 10 of these animal citizens types per game. There are 30 available creatures that you can combine into a shared deck. And primarily, what you're doing is you are trying to get sets of these. And as you gain sets of these different citizens, their power kind of, I guess, for the lack of a better term, or the term they use, they spark. So as they build up, they gain more power. You're able to track more of these different animal citizens to your tableau, and you're able to kind of put these together, splay them out, and set collection, variable setup throughout, and the artwork and the scoring opportunities of different cards is quite unique. And again, Philip DeBerry, he's awesome. So the cards offer a lot of different scoring opportunities to them. This is coming out from Thunderworks Games. Citizens of Spark. It's out there, man. It's an out there card game.
It looks really cool. This is
Hmm.
a game I will definitely want to try out.
All right, Chris, what do you have up for us?
So this one is a bit of a solo game that I am a huge fan. Have you ever played Tinder Blocks?
Yes. I'm
All
building a
right.
little fire there, right?
Yes. So it is probably my favorite dexterity game to bring around. It
Mhm.
fits in your pocket. It takes about 10 seconds to show people how to play. One of my favorite things is that it has a sort of equalizer. It doesn't matter how good you are, how steady you are at dexterity games. Everybody has to play with these little tiny itty bitty tweezers that nobody is good at. And you're trying to just stack cubes and logs on top of each other to make sure the fire doesn't fall down. And they are coming out with Tinderblocks Storm Edition, and it looks like this is going to be adding a couple new mechanics. A couple new pieces as well, where these little transparent blue cubes. I am really excited because last time they added an expansion was the Marshmallow expansion, and it was absolutely amazing. So I'm really excited to see what they do with Storm Edition.
Very nice. Yeah, no, 100%. Next up for me is a game that, again, the artwork right off the bat kind of grabbed me. This is called Rebel Princess. And again, it's utilizing one of my favorite mechanics, which is trick taking. This is coming out from Bezier Games. And basically, you're one of these princesses that is avoiding getting married at this. I guess every time there's a royal party, people need to get married. And you're trying to avoid a party that is going to do that. So, as Prince Charming is trying to, all these different Prince Charmings, not just the one, but all the different types of Prince Charmings, are trying to interrupt the party to marry a princess. You are trying to avoid them at all costs, utilizing trick taking, because typically that's what you do when people are trying to offer you their hand in marriage. So you don't want to collect tricks again. And the player with the highest number of the suit that started the tricks takes all the cards. Again, not good because in those tricks could be a marriage proposal, and obviously not a good thing. So the player with the fewest marriage proposals after 5 rounds wins. Each round has different rules that come into play. Uh, there's new princesses in the deluxe version, which is always good. Giant cards and different mechanisms to play. But again, trick taking, awesome princesses kicking some butt, and Bezier Games always does a really nice job here. So, and again, the artwork. I love the artwork. Art is great. So,
I I love when people come up with these like way to turn a theme on its head,
100%.
because you have so many games like Love Letter, where it's just like get the love letter to the princess, like get the princess with the prince, and it's like being able to be like, no, 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 the
No,
prince
no.
is like, get out of here. I just want to have fun at this party.
It's Princess Power, man. So,
Hmm.
and I love the idea of the variable player powers, which kind of mix this up because Bezier Games did Cat in the Box, which
Yeah.
was all about taking a trick taking game, which normally is like I've seen and done all of those things, and really took it in a different way. And then here, Rebel Princess, again with different rules for each round as far as how the round plays up, but also the special powers and the special cards that come into play. But again, instead of trying to win tricks, you're trying to avoid the tricks to avoid the marriage proposals, and again, play against the other players as well. So yeah, Rebel Princess, man, that's a buy for me. I haven't even played it yet. I'm gonna buy it.
It's funny that you mentioned Cat in the Box, because my last one
What?
is, yeah, it's Colossal Cat in the
Oh
Box.
no,
Yes.
you're gonna buy the giant cat, aren't you?
I do want the giant cat.
You have a cat
Um,
already, Chris. Come on,
I
man.
know. I have a little black cat. His name is Bagheera, and then I want a little
Aw.
plastic cat to go with him. um, so I I love the idea of turning Cat in the Box and just making a completely unneeded massive version of it.
Yeah,
Getting those little jellies 200% bigger, getting the cat starter token 200% bigger giant cat. I just thought it was a very fun thing for them to do. I'm really excited to see it. I'm really excited to get a copy. But what I'm actually really excited for is the two modules that they're adding to this.
uh
So they're going to be adding modules where one
huh.
of them is going to be a bit of an easier board, where you can kind of chain and group things a little bit easier than you would in the base game. So certain spots are shared by multiple numbers instead of just a single number. And then there's the other one, which lets you chain your little piece, your like little area control pieces throughout multiple spaces. So it kind of like helps build, like, bridge this gap. I think that's a really cool way for them to kind of like change the way Cat in the Box was playing by changing the actual board itself instead of adding new rules or adding some weird bloat to it. Just simply changing the board that you're placing your icons are on, it just changes the game entirely.
Yeah, no, 100. we've played a lot of this. Again, was this Gen Con? I think it might have been Gen Con last year. Or was Origins last year? I mean, it's a lot of cons that we go to play Cat in the Box. It's con. Anthony did not like trick taking games initially. I think mostly because he played a couple that did not let him do things.
Mhm.
And Cat in the Box has been one of his favorites, and I've really enjoyed it as well. I love that idea as far as like you have a hand of cards. This could be nothing, or this could be everything. Now bet on it. You're just like
Now, don't you want 200% more Cat in the Box? It's
don't.
it that's it's so unnecessary. It's like when they did that very limited run of Giant Thule.
Mm-hmm,
Like it's something that is just, if you love the game and you want this little extra silly thing, go
mm-hmm.
for it. Like it's there for you, but it's not necessary.
All right, so giant cat in the box, literally the giant cat in a
Mhm.
box, neither dead or alive, but both dead and alive versus Cthulhu. What do you think?
Oh, I pick Cat in the Box every day of the week.
That's right.
I want the Cat in the Box in every game rather than Cthulhu in every game.
That's true. And also, the cat is both dead and alive at the same time, and Cthulhu even dealing with elder gods is not the same as dealing with a cat in the box because they are the original mysterious creature nonetheless. All right, my final game here, Chris, is a game that I'm really hotly anticipated. This is in the footsteps of Marie Curie.
Hmm.
As we know, the famous scientist who's known for being a pioneer in the field of radioactivity. You work as a young scientist working alongside her and helping her in her research discover radium. So you're carrying out experiments, improving your laboratory, and of course doing all of the different Euromechanics you can because you're trying to win a Nobel Prize, man. Because that's what you do. One of the things I really like about this most, which again is both wonderful and sad, because obviously radiation poisoning was really a thing for her, and sadly she suffered and died for her amazing achievements. It's benefited us all. There's a cube tower. Uh, because you got radioactive material, so you gotta put it in that kind of refined metal tower to keep it safe. But then, of course, it's a cube tower, so those things come out, and then that's the materials that you're going to be manipulating throughout the game to carry various experiments. So you got your pitch blending, you got uranium, you got your radium. All these are very dangerous stuff to play with, kids. Don't deal with uranium, kids. Leave that to a professional scientist, of course. So you have your workshop, you're carrying out research and your different experiments, and the artwork here is great. Again, it's always nice to see. Uh, it looks like a nice, crunchy little euro about a wonderful topic and an amazing scientist out there. So, if you're a Euro fan, if you are a scientist fan, if you just love cube towers in the footsteps of Marie Curie, it's coming out.
Oh, I'm really interested in this.
See, look what
So
I did. I made you do a thing.
so I actually walk every morning to a playground that is named after her. Uh,
Aw.
but not only that, but I've seen that it's called In the Footsteps of Mary Curie. I was like, oh, is this made by the same people who did In the Footsteps of Darwin? And it is.
Yes.
So I hope that they do, like, they continue making a series of this where they just
Hmm.
keep highlighting like famous people in history through board games. That would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and that one is up for, as we talked about last week, Chris. That's up for
For a spiel, yeah.
Spiel Euros Award.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there
Yeah.
you go, everyone. Our Gen Con 2024 preview. We hope you enjoy our wonderful fascination with all the great games that are coming out this year. Hopefully, you get to attend Gen Con. You should. If not, plan for next year and pack all the good stuff. Let us know what you get to the table, and hopefully, some of these games do hit your table, or hopefully hit your bag and you run out of them before they run out. Until next time, this is Chris.
And this is Chris.
And we'll save you all a seat at the table. Take care, everyone.